Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through the information noise and really pull out the key insights for you. Today, we're getting into something almost everyone deals with, but maybe doesn't love talking about: office conflict. It happens everywhere, right? But this deep dive is focused on helping you handle it calmly, clearly, and with confidence, especially when you're doing it in English.
Exactly. Our goal really is to equip you, give you the specific phrases, the strategies, maybe some mindset shifts you need for all kinds of conflict situations. You know, whether it's a disagreement that pops up in a meeting, or maybe you get one of those emails, the rude ones, or perhaps just clashing with a colleague. We think this could be a bit of a game changer for how you interact professionally. So let's start with something fundamental. Conflict. It's just a normal part of work. It really is. It's not something weird or something to necessarily be afraid of all the time. Actually, there's data on this. That CPP Global study found 85% of employees deal with conflict pretty regularly. And almost a third, 29%, said they deal with it always or frequently. So it's common.
Right, 85%. That's huge. It really underlines that it's not just you if you're facing this.
Yeah.
But you also hinted that not all conflict is bad, that some is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Some conflict is actually crucial for growth, for innovation. The key isn't avoiding it altogether. It's how you respond. That's what makes the difference.
And in English, this is where it gets, well, interesting. Your tone. It matters just as much as your words, maybe even more sometimes. Like, think about being in a meeting. If you just flat out say, "I disagree."
Oof, yeah. That can land pretty hard.
Right. But compare that to something like, "Okay, I see your point, but may I offer a different perspective?" It's the same basic message, disagreement, but the impact, totally different. Keeps things more constructive. So the question becomes, how do we actually do that? How do we keep that calm, professional tone when things get tense? Often it starts with the words we pick. And there's this idea of buffer phrases.
Ah, yes, buffer phrases. Very useful.
Yeah, they're like little tools, aren't they, to keep things smooth. They add a sort of cushion. So examples could be things like, "I understand where you're coming from." That's a classic.
Shows empathy right away.
Or, "Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture." Kind of diffuses the immediate tension.
Yeah, reframes it.
Another one. "Can we take a moment to clarify expectations?" Really practical.
Good for preventing future issues, too.
And maybe something like, "I'd like to find a solution that works for both of us." Signals you're aiming for collaboration, not just winning.
And what's really going on there psychologically is interesting. These phrases don't just soften things, they kind of disarm the other person a bit. They show emotional intelligence, right? That you get where they might be coming from, even if you disagree.
Right, EQ, that's key.
And showing that EQ, it builds trust. Even when things are tense, maybe especially when they're tense. It can make people more open to actually hearing you out.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. It makes total sense. That idea that handling conflict well can actually strengthen a relationship. That's powerful. I actually have a quick story about this. Maria, a student I knew, she had this colleague who would just interrupt her constantly in meetings. Drove her nuts.
Oh, I can imagine. So frustrating.
Totally. But instead of snapping, she tried one of these buffer phrases. Next time it happened, she just calmly said, "I value your input. Can I finish my thought first, then hear yours?"
And how did it go?
It worked.
Yeah.
Like instantly. The colleague paused, apologized, and let her finish. Respect was maintained, problem solved. Simple, but effective.
That's a great example for face-to-face. But what about email? That's a whole different beast, isn't it? No tone, just the words on the screen. It's so easy for misunderstandings to happen, especially when someone's already a bit annoyed.
Oh, definitely. Email conflict is, a minefield sometimes. That lack of tone is killer.
And you see those passive-aggressive phrases creep in so easily. So let's talk swaps. Specific things you can say instead, like, instead of writing, "as I already said," which sounds kind of snippy.
Yeah, like, "Weren't you listening?"
Right. Try, just to reiterate, much more neutral. Still makes the point.
Okay, good one. What else?
Well, instead of "you misunderstood," which puts the blame squarely on them, try something like, "I may not have explained clearly." It takes a bit of responsibility for the communication breakdown, which can really lower defenses.
Ah, that's clever.
Yeah.
Shifts the focus to the communication itself, not just their understanding.
Exactly. And one more. Instead of the defensive, "this isn't my fault," which rarely helps.
Oh, never helps, really.
Probably not. Try, "let's review where the misunderstanding happened." It's collaborative, forward-looking, focuses on fixing it, not blaming.
Those are brilliant swaps. They let you be assertive, make your point, but without, well, without being a jerk about it, basically.
It maintains respect.
But I wonder, using something like, I may not have explained clearly, does that feel like admitting fault when it isn't yours? Is there a mindset shift needed there?
That's a fair question. I think the mindset is about focusing on the goal, which is usually resolution or clarity, not winning the blame game.
Yeah.
Taking that small bit of communication responsibility often smooths the path to the actual solution much faster. It's strategic kindness, maybe.
Strategic kindness. I like that. Okay, so we have phrases, email swaps, but what about just keeping your cool inside? Conflict can feel really personal, can't it? It triggers that fight or flight thing.
Absolutely, that fear response is natural.
So how do we manage that inner game? Confidence here isn't about being loudest or always right, is it?
No, not at all. It's much more about staying grounded, staying in control of yourself, even when things feel chaotic.
And how do we do that? Any practical tips?
One of the simplest but most powerful, breathe and pause. Before you reply, just take a beat. Even just 3 seconds of silence can make a world of difference.
3 seconds?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like much, but I guess it feels longer in the moment.
It can, but it does 2 things. Gives you a moment to gather your thoughts, avoid reacting impulsively, and it also makes you sound more thoughtful, more in control to the other person. Projects, composure.
Composure. That's a good word for it.
I remember a boss I had once. She was a master of this. If a meeting got tense, she wouldn't raise her voice. She'd just pause, maybe take a sip of her tea.
Really, just sipped her tea.
Yeah. And then she'd respond calmly. That little ritual, that pause, it radiated authority without her saying a word during the pause. It was incredibly effective. I learned a lot just watching that.
Wow. That's a great visual. The power of the pause and maybe a prop.
Yes.
Okay, let's shift slightly. Cultural nuances.
Yeah.
Particularly in many English-speaking workplaces, US, UK, Canada, places like that, there seems to be a value placed on being direct, but diplomatically so.
That's a really important point. Yes, directness is often valued, but it's directness with tact. That's the key combination.
So just blurting things out isn't the way.
Generally, no. In these cultures, while you're expected to speak up, to voice your perspective, silence isn't always golden. You're also expected to do it politely, professionally, using those buffer phrases we talked about, watching your tone.
So finding that balance.
Exactly. For example, saying something like, I respect your view, but I see it differently. That's usually perceived as confident and professional. It's not seen as rude.
It's clear, but it's respectful.
Precisely. Assertive, but polite. That's often the sweet spot in these contexts.
Okay, this has been super helpful. Let's try and pull the main threads together for everyone listening. Key takeaways. First, remember, conflict isn't always bad. It's often part of growth, part of getting to better ideas. So don't just run from it.
Right. See its potential.
Second, use those buffer phrases. I understand where you're coming from. Let's take a step back. They keep things calm and respectful.
Vital tools.
Third, especially with email, swap out blamey language. Instead of, you misunderstood, try, maybe I wasn't clear. Focus on clarity, not fault.
Big difference in reception there.
Fourth, control your tone and your timing. Remember that pause, that breath. Silence can be powerful.
The tea sipping. Yeah.
Yes. And finally, in many English-speaking contexts, be direct, but always be kind and diplomatic. That combination shows real professional strength.
Absolutely sums it up. So the core message is, you can handle this. The next time things get tense at work, you don't need to dread it. You've got the words now, you've got some strategies, the wisdom to navigate it professionally in English.
Definitely feels more manageable now.
And maybe here's a final thought, something for you to chew on. What if? What if leaning into these challenging conversations instead of dodging them is actually the real test? And maybe, just maybe, it's the ultimate accelerator for your professional influence, your growth, especially in an English-speaking environment.
That's a powerful question to end on. How embracing, not avoiding, might be the key to growth. Lots to think about there. Take these ideas, reflect on them, and see how you can apply them.